Welcome to USA Hard Timeline, where we dive into the fascinating past of America through clear chronological stories. Today, we're time-traveling back to New York in 1700, a time when this bustling metropolis had only about 5,000 people. That's right, the city that never sleeps was once a sleepy colonial outpost. We'll show you exactly what it looked like. Let's jump in. Imagine standing on the southern tip of Manhattan Island in the year 1700. No skyscrapers, no Times Square lights, no yellow cabs honking through traffic. Instead, you're surrounded by a modest settlement of around 5,000 souls, a mix of English, Dutch, Africans, and a handful of other Europeans. This was New York, a young British colony that had only been renamed from New Amsterdam 36 years earlier. To put that population in perspective, today's New York City has over 8 million residents. Back then, it was smaller than many modern small towns, yet it was already buzzing with the seeds of what would become the world's most iconic city. Let's set the stage with a quick timeline. The story starts in 1624, when the Dutch West India Company established New Amsterdam as a trading post. Fur trade with Native Americans, particularly the Lenape people, was the big draw. By 1664, the British seized control without a fight, renaming it New York after the Duke of York. Fast forward to 1700, and we're in the reign of King William III. The city is under British rule, but Dutch influences linger in architecture, street names, and culture. The population has grown steadily from about 1,500 in 1664, thanks to immigration and trade. Now, what did this place actually look like? Thanks to AI tools reconstructing scenes from old maps, engravings, and diaries, we can visualize it vividly. The heart of New York in 1700 was the lower end of Manhattan Island, roughly from today's Battery Park up to Wall Street, which, fun fact, got its name from a literal wooden wall built by the Dutch in 1653 to protect against Native American attacks and rival colonists. Beyond that wall, the island was mostly farmland, forests, and swamps. The built-up area was tiny, maybe a square mile or so. Picture narrow, unpaved streets lined with 1- or 2-story wooden houses. These weren't grand mansions. Most were simple frame structures with steep, gabled roofs, a nod to Dutch architecture. Brick buildings were rare and reserved for the wealthy or public use. The streets were muddy in rain, dusty in summer, and lit only by lanterns at night. No streetlights yet. Horse-drawn carts and pedestrians shared the roads, and the air smelled of wood smoke, horse manure, and the salty harbor breeze. Let's take a virtual tour. Starting at the harbor, the lifeblood of the city. New York's natural deep-water port made it a trading powerhouse. Dozens of sailing ships from England, the Caribbean, and Africa docked at wooden wharves along the East River. Goods like furs, tobacco, sugar, and enslaved people were unloaded here. Yes, slavery was already entrenched. By 1700, about 20% of the population was enslaved Africans, forced to work in homes, on docks, or in trades. Moving inland, you'd find Broadway. That's Broadway today, a wide dirt road running north from the fort at the Battery. At the southern tip stood Fort Amsterdam, now a crumbling structure renamed Fort George by the British. It housed the governor and served as a defense point, though New York saw little warfare in this era. Nearby was the bustling marketplace at the intersection of what we call Pearl and Water Streets. Vendors sold fresh fish from the rivers, bread from local bakeries, and imported goods like tea and cloth. The city's first city hall was here, a modest building where merchants haggled and officials governed. As we head up to Wall Street, the area north of the wall was more rural. Farms dotted the landscape, with windmills grinding grain, remnants of Dutch heritage. The Collect Pond, a fresh water source, supplied the city but was often polluted. Beyond that, the island was wilderness, thick woods where locals hunted deer, and marshlands teeming with wildlife. Who lived here? A diverse crowd for the time. English merchants dominated, but Dutch families like the Van Cortlands and Stuyvesants held influence. French Huguenots fled religious persecution, adding to the mix. Jewish settlers from Brazil and Europe established one of America's first synagogues around 1700, and tragically, enslaved Africans and free blacks formed communities, often in the outskirts. Daily life was tough but vibrant. Most people rose with the sun. Men worked as sailors, craftsmen, or traders. Women managed households, spinning wool or brewing beer. Children played in the streets with hoops or marbles. Religion played a big role. The Dutch Reformed Church on Garden Street, now Exchange Place, was central, but Anglicans built Trinity Church in 1698, which still stands today. Food reflected the colonial mix. Corn from native influences, salted fish, oysters from the harbor. New York was oyster heaven back then, and imported rum from the West Indies. Taverns like the Black Horse were social hubs, where news from Europe was shared over ale. Economically, New York was thriving as a middle colony. It exported flour, bread, and shipbuilding materials to the Caribbean and Europe. The slave trade, though grim, fueled growth. By 1700, New York had surpassed Boston as the second largest city in the colonies, behind only Philadelphia. But challenges loomed. Disease was rampant. Yellow fever outbreaks killed hundreds. Fires were a constant threat in wooden buildings. A big one in 1696 destroyed much of the fort. And tensions with Native Americans simmered, though major conflicts were further west. How does this connect to modern New York? That tiny settlement laid the grid for today's streets. Broadway, Wall Street, Pearl Street, they're all from the 1700s layout. The port's success set the stage for New York's rise as a global financial center. Immigration waves would swell the population, 60,000 by 1800, millions by 1900. In wrapping up, New York in 1700 was a humble beginning to an epic story. With just 5,000 people, it was a melting pot of cultures, a hub of trade, and a glimpse of America's future diversity and ambition. AI helps us see it, but history reminds us of the human stories, the triumphs and the tragedies. If you enjoyed this reconstruction, like and comment below. Which American city should we time travel to next? Boston in 1770? Philadelphia in 1787? Subscribe for more timelines, and thanks for watching USA History Timeline. See you in the past.